Do squirrels cry?
What?
That's what Rosie asked you at the hike yesterday.
That's right.
I don't know what was going through her mind. Hey, and welcome back to the Whatever is True podcast. I am Bethany, and I am here with my husband, Jake.
Hey, everybody.
Today, we have a really fun topic for you guys, and that is the topic of being woke or wokeism. But before we dive into that, we just wanted to share a little snippet into RV life lately. We are recording right now in Yosemite National Park. Absolutely gorgeous.
So much fun. Great park. Go if you haven't gone.
But getting here was a little tricky.
Whew. Yeah. It was weird because normally I will just plug in the address to Google Maps and I'll follow it and we get there just fine. Well, this time I plugged it in, we start driving and it's going great. And then we get to Tioga Pass, is how you say it?
Yep.
And as we pull onto the road, we see a sign that says, steep, curvy road ahead, unadvised for trailers.
All right. Now, to your credit, before you just plugged in the address, you were actually looking at Google Maps, like the topography, to see if there was like certain roads we could avoid and different mountain passes. And you did put us on a different road that got rid of a lot of mountains. And it was just like that last section that had mountains in it, right?
Right. And I chose to go the little bit longer route for less up and downs.
Now, we always pass signs that say like 6% grade, 8% grade, and Jake does an amazing job of maneuvering up and down these really long stretches of mountains. But this time it had another sign attached to it that said trailers not advised. And I just looked at Jake and I was like, we can't go up there. Like, we can't do this.
So instead of just going, no, we'll be fine, I decided to listen to my wife. We turned around.
Okay, I remembered, though, seeing something on like a Facebook forum for Thousand Trails of people talking about the road, but I hadn't paid it much mind because we've just never really run into an issue like this, or it was just like far out in advance enough that I was like, we're not having this conversation yet. And so I had that in the back of my mind and I was like, we're screwed right now.
So we turn around, go to the end of the road to this little gas station, and we start figuring things out. We broke out Starlink because we had no reception on our phones. We're looking up all these reviews of this pass, and like some of them are saying, oh, it was awful, I'll never do that again. And some of them were just like, yeah, it wasn't bad. Scenery was worth it.
Well, and then to make matters worse, we run into this other RV couple
who were from New Hampshire.
And so we struck up a conversation with them and they were like, we're in the same issue here. Also, we were just talking to a ranger and they told us that they had this massive RV, like a class A. It was, I don't even know how many feet high it was.
Really tall. But they said that a ranger said that there were tunnels that were 10 feet, 5 inches. Our RV is 11 feet, 6 inches. So in my mind, I'm thinking we're going to crash into the roof of the tunnel. So we start figuring out what we're going to do.
So thankfully, Jake finds a worker who reassures him, you will be fine if you are comfortable driving up a massive mountain in an RV. It's not unsafe. You will be okay. And I was just feeling extremely conflicted because we're on all of these forums, reading all of these comments of people like, I will never go up Tioga Pass again. It's terrible. It's bad. And we're hearing this RV couple say things. And I was so stressed. I'm going to blame pregnancy on this one, but I started crying. It was at this moment that like the clouds started to come over and it got darker. And I think it started to rain, or the weather said it was going to be rainy. The wind starts picking up. And all I can think of is like, oh my gosh, we're going to be on this super narrow mountain with like cliffs falling down on either side of us. And
yeah,
I was a mess.
That was my realization of what Bethany had in her mind. Like the image that you put in your mind was like a single road, cliffs, sheer cliffs on both sides, and like we were not going to make it. I am very confident with driving, and I'm looking at this road going, okay, it's a bigger road. It's going to be fine. We'll be fine. And Bethany took, like, as we were still trying to figure everything out, Bethany took one of the girls to use the bathroom, and I saw another guy with a truck RV, and I went over to him and I was like, hey, did you come down Tioga Pass, or are you about to go up it? He goes, oh, I just came down. And so I talked to him about it and asked him, he goes, if you're comfortable, you'll be fine. So I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to be slow. The guy said there was pull-offs. We'll be fine. So when Bethany comes back,
he asked me, he's like, do you trust me? And I think I said yes. I think I said, I trust you. I just don't trust the roads. And he said, we're going to go. And I just said, okay, we're going. And so he started driving and I just started praying.
Well, and part of the reason we were just going was because it was 2 hours to go through Tioga Pass, or over 10 hours to drive around the mountains. And then we would still have to go up a steep road on the other side. So we start going up, and I am so glad we went up this road. The views were breathtaking. The road was steep, but we were going uphill.
Really steep.
And we were on the hillside. So like there was a whole lane and then the cliff. We were up against a hill beside us. So we just started climbing, and we were going slow, made it up to the top. Views were beautiful.
Some of just the most awesome, magnificent views you have ever seen. Didn't really get any pictures because I wasn't going to let Jake take any pictures while he's driving up the cliff, and I was on the right side, so I couldn't really get any good shots for a picture. But look up Tioga Pass. Absolutely amazing. Just thanking God that we are safe and we are okay. We still have to get down the mountain next week or the end of this week, but I'm just not thinking about that.
Moral of the story is comments online are from certain people's perspectives that aren't yours.
Truth. All right. So before we jump into wokeism, we want to share a little bit about Samaritan Ministries.
As the man of the house, a main part of my calling as a Christian is to provide for the needs of my family. I am so grateful for Samaritan Ministries being there to help me do this. We all know just how quickly a medical need can arise, whether it's a trip to the ER, a pregnancy, or an unexpected diagnosis. That's where Samaritan Ministries comes in, connecting hundreds of thousands of Christians across the nation who care for one another spiritually and financially during a time it's needed most. Samaritan Ministries has been the right choice for my family, and I want to share some reasons why. 1, there are no networks. You have peace of mind knowing that you can go to the doctors you trust, which is especially important when it comes to our holistic mindset. 2, you're part of a Christian community. When you have a medical need, fellow members send money directly to you to help you pay your medical bills, and you do the same for them, all while praying for and encouraging one another. 3, you can join today. Start health care sharing with Samaritan Ministries the day you complete the membership application, which you can do when you visit samaritanministries.org/wavesandlilacs to learn more. That's samaritanministries.org/wavesandlilacs.
So as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about wokeism and being woke today. Now, if you have not heard those terms before, I'm baffled and very, very surprised because I feel like this word has just dominated our culture, actually for a while, but like really the last 4 to 10 years. And the reason this is our topic today was because I posted a reel a couple of weeks ago, and I was just talking about how Jake and I are intentionally raising pro-American, anti-woke children. And whenever I post something controversial, Instagram loves to show it to people who wholeheartedly disagree with me or really want to question what that means. Now, questioning what I mean, like, that's completely fine. And I understand that. People arguing me about it, that's a whole other thing. But it got me thinking, and it got Jake and I in conversation about being woke. And so we decided to start researching it. And we were on a bit of a documentary binge at the time when a wokeism documentary came up. And so we started that, and that kind of just led us down this path of research. And we have spent the last, 2 weeks researching this topic. And we have made it a point to look at both sides, at the liberal side and at the conservative side, and to really understand how both sides view this term, where this term came from. And we wanted to share it with you guys because it's really fascinating, but I think that it's really good to be to understand how other people view this term and what it means today. So if you were to go to the dictionary, if you were to open up Webster's dictionary and look up the word woke, you would find that it says it is being aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. Now, that definition is very basic. We also pulled up a definition from Vivek Ramaswamy. He wrote the book entitled Woke Inc. And we were watching some interviews with him, and his definition is very similar to that, but a little bit more specific. And he says that being woke is being alert to invisible injustices perpetrated against disempowered classes of people. So you can keep those definitions in mind while Jake goes through the history of this word.
I love how I always get the history parts of our podcast because I really like it.
You're also the history buff in this marriage, in case you didn't know.
That is very true. So, originally, woke, or rather, stay woke, meant to stay aware of systemic injustices and inequalities targeting Black people. Now, in 1938, a blues singer named Lead Belly released a song about the Scottsboro Boys, who were 9 Black teenagers accused of rape in Alabama. When he talked about it, he would say, "I advise everyone to be a little careful when going down there to Alabama. Best stay woke, keep your eyes open." Then in 1962, William Melvin Kelly's essay, "If You're Woke, You Dig It," highlights how white people often misinterpret or distort the original meaning of Black American slang, which is then taken over, transformed, and abandoned by its original Black creators. Then, beginning in the 2010s, woke became a broader term of awareness of social inequalities such as racial justice, sexism, and denial of LGBTQ rights. So just in that amount of time, you can see how it went from originally the Black community looking out for each other and being aware of racial injustices. And then it started to be used to encompass a bunch of other aspects of society, like identity politics, social justice, white privilege, reparations for slavery in the United States, and LGBTQ rights. And where this big change happened was actually in college lectures with professors talking about it and discussing it. And it just became kind of an umbrella term for all of these other agendas. And then in 2020, Black Lives Matter took woke and incorporated it. And we saw wokeism go into sports and business. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember all the major sports teams were taking a knee and protesting the national anthem, and just it really got out of hand pretty quickly, I feel.
And then you have all of the businesses, and it just felt like one after the other. I mean, I just remember like my friends and I would be texting and would be like, oh my gosh, now this company has gone woke. And you could see them catering to the homosexual agendas very specifically. A lot of the companies came out in support of providing abortion, either payment for abortion or like providing rides to have their employees have access to abortions. And that was also when that phrase "go woke or go broke" got coined as well, because a lot of people were pushing back on these companies and starting to vote with their dollars.
Right. I mean, one that I can think of is, at the beginning of June, there's always a reel that goes around now that it's like, okay, June 1st, all the companies change their Instagram profile pictures to incorporate the LGBT flag. Or in February, it's all geared towards Black History Month. And I feel like businesses are just using it as a marketing gimmick, but they're seeing it kind of hurt them and not help them the way they were hoping it would.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I think that a lot of these companies are given these, you do this or you're not going to succeed, like from the way up top companies saying you have to comply with this or else. I mean, I haven't done all of that research yet. That would be like a part 2 to this podcast, I feel like. And that's just not where we're heading today. But that's also something just to keep in mind or to do your own research on. But on your point of that, like every single June, everybody changes their profile picture or whatever. Now, when a company approaches us to work with them, I will scroll back on their Instagram feed to the month of June to see if they have very specific posts celebrating Pride Month, just to see where their stance is and how vocal they are on it. I mean, we walked away from a collaboration with Crayola one year because of I think they were putting like drag queens on their page or something. I don't remember. This was several years ago. And I remember just being so upset because we love Crayola. Like our kids love their pencils and their markers and coloring books. And we just slowly began to shift what we were buying to other companies.
Right. And it kind of ties into our last point of like where wokeism is today. I mean, really, it has changed society, but it's also changed history. So, it is a much bigger deal about Columbus Day now. It's now Indigenous Peoples Day. It's no longer the month of June. It is Pride Month. Or they're taking down historical people because they don't meet today's standards of what is right. Okay, so that's kind of where woke got its start and roughly where it is today. So now that we have all of that, my question is the original woke bad? I personally don't think so. I think it is very important for us to be aware of racial things happening around us and taking care of people. However, I feel like the word woke has changed in meaning, kind of like the word gay. It used to mean, oh, I'm gay, I'm happy, I'm having a good time. And now it means that you are a homosexual.
Right. I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think that a lot of things start out good. And, we look back to where our country was, a little less than 100 years ago. And Black people were treated a lot differently and very poorly. And so it makes sense that people felt the need to be woke and aware to what was happening for their physical safety. Now, I understand that in 2020, we had Black Lives Matter movement come about, and that was a huge thing. It was very politicized, and it really did divide crowds in two. And I think what we're going to get to in this podcast is how the rights and the lefts both can agree on actually a lot of things. At the core of a lot of issues in America, such as gun violence or the immigration problem, we can agree, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, that there's a problem and there needs to be a resolution. But the resolution looks very different how we get there from both sides. And so I think that's what happened also with wokeism. And both sides see this problem. They see racial injustices, they see social injustices, and they go, this needs to be solved. How are we going to solve it? And what has happened is the lefts have said, okay, let's celebrate, let's embrace transgenderism, homosexuality, that whole realm of agendas there. And the conservative side has said, hold on a second, transgenderism and homosexuality, that there is a deeper underlying issue that is happening. And by celebrating it and making gay marriage legal, and by allowing sex changes for young children without parental consent, is a problem. And so, again, both aware of these issues and these people groups in America, but how we are interacting with them and going about solving the problems, very different. And so you end up with this term woke, and you talk to a liberal and they're like, well, being woke is a good thing. I am woke. I am aware to the injustices happening around me. And the conservatives are saying, go woke, go broke. It's encompassing a lot of these problems and saying, we're not going to stand for transgenderism, homosexuality, and all of these other things that are happening here. We're going to deal with it in a different manner.
Right. And I think it's also, a lot of it is just becoming forced on us. Like, it's not, okay, this person has their right to transition themselves. They are an adult. They can do that. Well, now it's everyone has to be okay with it and accept me for wanting to do this. And the left is like, absolutely, do what you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be. And the right is going, no, you can do it. You have the freedom to do that. But that doesn't mean I have to think that it's okay.
Yeah, the lefts see this as being compassionate and being kind, and we're accepting and we're caring for these people. But when you actually look at all these studies and the research and the testimonies coming out of people who are walking away from homosexuality or had that gender change, and now we're going, I don't want this. This is not who I am. Like, this is not who God created me to be. You're realizing that there are a lot of problems happening, and that compassion only led to allowed disillusion and allowed them to live out these fantasies that they were not created by God to do. Now, I don't care whether you're a Christian or not a Christian. The truth of the matter is that God made you. He created you in a very specific way. And whether you believe in him or not, it does not change how your body operates and what you were placed on this earth as a male or as a female, or to be married to a male or a female.
Yeah, Genesis 1:27 answers this completely. It says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So when someone has the freedom to do what they want, doesn't mean that it's right.
Now, we're not saying that everyone on the right side or all conservatives are Christians by any means, but we do see a lot more of those biblical values being shown because they are encouraging people to live out their God-given roles. I think the right sees wokeism as a mind virus that needs to be eradicated. They're seeing the sin, they're seeing the mental illness, and they want to help these people. I mean, I can't speak for everyone on either side of how they want to see all of these problems addressed, but I do know that there is a large percentage of conservative people who are Christian who genuinely care for these people and want to see them succeed and to not be harmed by the lies that the left is telling them. Now, I think also that the right side does just lump together all of these agendas that have been being pushed over the last 4 to 8 years, I would say. And they kind of just encompass all of those and call that woke. Is that the right way of seeing it? I don't know that there's a right or a wrong here, honestly, because I really think, as Jake said earlier, that this term has just evolved and it has changed. And if you are still fighting for that root definition, it's not wrong, but you're going to confuse people. And there are a growing number of people who are calling all of these left-wing agendas woke. And I don't think that's a wrong way of using that term, because there is such a large number of people talking about it that way. I mean, you see it on the news, you see it in politics. It's very fast growing.
Right. And just like we said, the word has changed, just like the word gay. I mean, if you try to use the original meaning of the word gay, you're going to confuse a lot of people really quickly. And I think that when people say, that they are woke, the majority of people are going to see it as what it is thought of now versus the original meaning of it.
I think it's also important to note that you really need to be aware of who you're talking to. Because if you're talking to a conservative, they're more than likely going to be lumping together all these left-wing agendas. Whereas if you're talking to a liberal, there is a greater chance that what they're talking about is racial injustice. Now, with that being said, again, it's so important to be able to understand how they're viewing racial injustice, because then we can go deep into the Black Lives Matter and into reparations and all of these things, and you're still going to have very opposing sides of how to deal with those things. And it's just really important. So, if you don't know how somebody defines woke, ask them. It's going to save a lot of confusion in your conversation.
So the purpose of this podcast is not to dive into every nuance of wokeism and exploit it and figure it out and understand everything. What we really want to talk about is how we as Christians should address wokeness. Psalms 82, 3 and 4 says, "Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed, rescue the weak, the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked." So when we're looking at injustices in this world, God clearly calls us to defend the weak and do all these different things for people. He's calling us Christians to do this. He's not calling the entire government to do it. He is calling us individuals to help these people that are in need.
Proverbs 31:9 says, "Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." And just along those same lines, it's being able to use our voice as Christians to be able to spread the love of God, to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And it's not about being tied up in politics and definitely not finding our identity in politics or on one side or the other, but finding our identity in Christ and dealing with the issues in our world in a biblical manner. Now, it seems to me that some liberals think that Republicans have hijacked the word and made it mean something that it's not. But what I wonder is if they just saw how Democrats were dealing with these woke issues and they disagreed and they were like, we have a better way of solving all of these problems. And so for me personally, like after going through all of this research, it's not going to change how I use the word woke. My goal at the end of the day is to raise non-woke children. I want to raise Jesus-loving, Bible-loving children who, when they see these issues of homosexuality, transgenderism, immigration, abortion, every single hot button political conversation that you are having with your neighbor right now, I want my children to go to the Bible and to say, how does God see this issue and how can I deal with it? And I firmly believe from the bottom of my heart that how the Democrats are dealing with all of these issues is not biblical. And at the end of the day, it's actually not compassionate and it's not loving, because if we really examine the word love, and if we truly love people, we will speak truth to people. We will speak life over people. And so I do think that there is value in having conversations with people surrounding the word woke so that you can understand where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, we're not really talking about woke. We're talking about people, we're talking about issues, and we're talking about how our world is functioning on a day-to-day basis. And our world clearly needs more love, but true love, and that being God's love.
I completely agree. And through the research that we did, like I kind of came away with like the original woke, the original meaning of woke, like looking out for injustices, I think is very good to be. However, what it has turned into, this wokeism, is really awful in my mind. I mean, it tells us that our feelings are more important than truth. It wants to have equality based on race and sexual orientation, not your accomplishments. And wokeism looks at things that you don't choose, such as race and gender. I think woke has turned into wokeism, and wokeism has spawned all of these agendas that the left is pushing right now. And as a Christian father, I will not accept those at all, especially for my children. In the end, though, I think being woke against injustices as an individual is a really good thing. Like, I'm pretty sure we've already said that in different ways multiple times throughout this podcast. But when you try to have woke en masse for everyone and being forced upon, it really becomes authoritarianism and Marxism. And if we go back to loving your neighbor and helping those in need, if we did that as Christians, I think a lot of this would really die down.
Well, and when we talk about this being loving, being kind, we're not saying to be passive or to just be a pushover with these topics. Right now, when we look at the public school system, there are stories coming out regularly about that teachers are giving out to their students, helping out with sex changes behind their parents' back. We need vocal Christians. We need vocal parents. We need vocal sons and daughters, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, whoever you are. Like, you don't need to be a parent to be vocal for America today. This is just one example in the school system, but you can see all of these problems in your very own city. But it is being bold, being courageous, speaking up for your beliefs, for those biblical values. And where you speak up, it's going to look really different. Not everyone is going to be, Jake and I just watched, talking about documentaries again, 22 Words with Pastor John, and he is going to all of these school board meetings, and he is fighting for a lot of these pornographic books to be taken off of the students' shelves, which Absolutely. And I'm so thankful for people who are bold and courageous and using their voices that way. But you being bold and courageous might mean a conversation with a neighbor or a friend or somebody who does not understand a biblical way of living. It doesn't always mean that we have to, be on TV to make a difference. Like, you can make, to be cliche here, you can make a difference in your own backyard. But yeah, I think that's really just what we have gotten as we have talked about wokeism and being woke here is, I don't want to be woke. I just want to be a Christian, and whatever the Bible has me doing on a topic, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be.
I could not agree with you more. I think that is the perfect ending to wrap this topic up. But before we go, we have one last company we want to share with you. 7 Weeks Coffee. Bethany and I both love coffee. We are also very pro-life. So when we found 7 Weeks Coffee, we were excited. They are a pro-life coffee company that donates 10% of every sale to pro-life organizations. 7 Weeks Coffee has supported over 900 pro-life organizations throughout the country. Now, if you're wondering if this coffee is good, it is amazing. They practice organic farming. They support local farmers around the world. The coffee is fresh roasted weekly, and it also mold free. Now, you can get 10% off your first order when you use code Jake and Bethany. So head over to 7 Weeks Coffee, get an order, try this delicious coffee, save 10%, and 10% will go to help a pro-life organization.
As always, you can find us on Instagram at Whatever Is Trueco. I am Waves and Lilacs, and Jake is at Jake Offscript. Feel free to say hi, and we'll see you guys next time.